Okay, let's look at part 2 on your end of year review where it says sentence types. Part 2, sentence types. A clause is a group of words with a blank and a blank. You should have written with a subject and a predicate. Clause is a group of words with a subject and a predicate. An independent clause can stand alone in a sentence. You might have underlined that or circled it. A dependent clause cannot stand alone in a sentence. They both have a subject and a predicate. To be a clause, it has to have a subject and a predicate. An independent clause can stand alone. A sentence, a simple sentence, is an independent clause. An independent clause can stand alone. A dependent clause cannot stand alone. It has to be with an independent clause. The sentence types are simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. And this just keeps going about that. A sentence with one independent clause and no other clauses is a simple sentence. One independent clause and no other clauses is a simple sentence. A sentence with two independent clauses two independent clauses joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, remember fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, is a compound sentence. Compound. A compound sentence is two independent clauses and they're joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, for, and, nor, but, or, yet. A sentence with one independent clause, so group of words with a subject and a predicate, and can stand alone. It could be a sentence by itself. If it's an independent clause, it can be a sentence by itself. So a sentence with one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses is a complex sentence. One independent and one or more dependent. Complex sentence. A sentence that contains one or more dependent clauses and two independent clauses joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction is a compound complex sentence. So let's look at that one more time. If it has one independent clause, it can be a sentence by itself. One independent clause, it's a simple sentence. Two independent clauses joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, for, and, nor, but, or, yet is compound. A sentence with one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses is complex. But now when we get to two independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses, then we have compound complex. In each sentence, underline each independent clause and each dependent clause twice. On the blank after the sentence, identify the sentence as simple, compound, complex, or compound complex. And you can use the information, or should have used the information above. All right. Let's look at number 1. When we play outside, we usually get very dirty. So let's first look for any independent clauses. Oh, we usually get very dirty. It's independent. And when we play outside is dependent. One clue to that is the word when. Remember, I gave you a sheet of paper that says words that begin subordinate or dependent clauses. So when you see these words, and if you might locate this in the grammar notes section of your binder, when you see these words, that's a clue that you might have a dependent clause after, although, as, because, before, if, since, than, though, unless, until, when, whenever, where, whereas. while, how, as if, as long as much as soon as though, even if, even though, provided that, in order that, lest. And then we have some more down here, some relative pronouns that begin adjective clauses. So it would be worth it for you to locate this paper if you're having trouble identifying dependent clauses, because these subordinating conjunctions will begin our dependent clauses. Sometimes the dependent clause is before the independent clause, like it is here, and sometimes it's after. We could even switch this around. We usually get very dirty when we play outside. We have the dependent clause when we play outside. When is our subordinating conjunction. Now, unlike our coordinating conjunctions, the subordinating conjunctions are part of the clause, because if it wasn't part of the clause, if we took it away, it would just say we play outside, and then it would be an independent clause. It could stand alone. So the subordinating conjunctions, unlike the coordinating conjunctions, are part of the clause. It's what makes it a dependent clause. Coordinating conjunctions, when they're joining two independent clauses, are not part of either clause. They're just the word that's joining them. But the subordinating conjunctions, are part of the dependent clause. It's what makes it dependent. So we have one independent and one dependent. A sentence with one independent and one or more dependent clauses is complex. It's complex. All right, let's look at the next sentence. The party was exciting. We have a subject party, verb was. There's only one subject and verb here. There's only one clause. It's an independent clause, and so it is a simple sentence. One independent clause. Let's look at the next sentence. I will watch a movie and I will go to bed. So I will watch a movie could be a sentence by itself. It's an independent clause. I will go to bed could be a sentence by itself. We've got the coordinating conjunction and joining the two. When we have two independent clauses joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, we have a compound sentence. It's a compound sentence. Notice how I just circled the conjunction. You maybe didn't do that, but I just circled it to show you that that coordinating conjunction is not part of either clause here. I will watch a movie can be a sentence by itself. I will go to bed can be a sentence by itself. The coordinating conjunction joins those two independent clauses. It makes a compound sentence. All right, let's go on to number 4. If I go to bed early, I will wake up early and I will not be late for school. So if I go to bed early has a subject I and a predicate got. How do I identify where this clause begins and ends? Well, if you look at it, if I go to bed early, we've got our subject I and our verb go. So we've got our group of words with a subject and predicate here, and our subordinating conjunction if. So if I go to bed early is dependent. Then we know that we're starting a new clause here because we've got a new subject I. Subject I, predicate will wake. So I will wake up early. If that were by itself, I will wake up early. Could it be a sentence by itself? Yes, it could. It does not have a subordinating conjunction. To be a dependent clause, guys, it has to have a subordinating conjunction. If it has a subject and a predicate, and it doesn't have that subordinating conjunction, it's an independent clause. It doesn't say when I wake up early or if I wake up early. It just says I will wake up early. It can stand alone. It's an independent clause. And then let's look at the next one. And I will not be late for school. We've got a coordinating conjunction there joining another independent clause. I will not be late for school. Can that be a sentence by itself? I will not be late for school. Yes, it can. It doesn't say when I will not be late or if I will not be late. It does not have a subordinating conjunction. It can stand alone. So if you look at this without that first dependent clause, if I go to bed early, if it just said I will wake up early and I will not be late for school, it would be compound, wouldn't it? It would be compound. But a regular compound sentence does not have a dependent clause on it. So if you have a compound sentence and then at least one dependent clause too, then you've got compound complex. Compound, oops, let's see. Sorry, I'm not watching my paper. I was watching the dog over in the corner of the room. Compound complex. There we go. Compound, complex. All right. Now let's look at the next one. Why are we eating dinner so early? Why are we eating dinner so early? Well, let's see. We have a subject we, predicate are eating. We have so. Now, so can be a subordinating conjunction starting a dependent clause, but is so early a dependent clause? So early, is that a dependent clause? Does it have a subject and a predicate? No. No, it does not. Early is an adverb, and so is another adverb there. How early? So early. So why are we eating dinner so early? We only have one subject and predicate in that sentence. That is an independent clause, and so that is a simple sentence. That is a simple sentence. Set this down for just a minute and let the dog out. Okay, let's look at the next one. Number 6. I will rest after I do my chores. I will rest after I do my chores. Okay, so let's see. I will rest could be a sentence by itself. I will rest. And let's see, is that the end of that clause? After I do my chores. Oh, after is a common subordinating conjunction. Subject I, predicate do. So yes, we have I will rest is our independent clause. After I do my chores is our dependent clause. So we have an independent clause and a dependent clause. That makes a complex sentence. Complex. Okay, let's look at part 3, subject-verb agreement. Underline the subject in each sentence and circle the correct verb. Remember that the subject will not be found in a prepositional phrase. You might want to cross out any prepositional phrases or put them in parentheses. Let's look at number 1. Each of these dresses have or has a wide belt. All right, I'm looking for any prepositional phrases first because I don't want to confuse my object of my preposition with the subject. If it's in a prepositional phrase, it cannot be the subject of the sentence. So we have of these dresses. See, if you didn't do that, you might have thought dresses is the subject, and then you would say dresses have. But the subject is each here. And remember those notes that I gave you that talked about, it was actually on one of the worksheets, so it might be in the grammar work section of your binder, that talks about the pronouns and which ones are singular, indefinite pronouns, and which ones are singular and which are plural. Remember, each is singular, because when you're talking about each of the dresses, you're talking about this one, and this one, and this one, and this one separately. So you're going to say, each of these dresses has. Each has, because each is singular. We need a singular verb. And remember, singular verbs end in S. It's opposite from the way that most nouns are. Most singular nouns do not end in S, and most plural nouns do. Of course, there are some exceptions, like children is plural and does not end in S, but for the most part, that's true. And then for verbs, all singular verbs end in S. All plural verbs do not. So each has. Let's look at the next sentence. The cause of both fires was the same. Let's look for prepositional phrases. We have of both fires. So we know fires is not going to be the subject. Fires were. But it's not fires were, it's cause. Cause is our subject. Cause is singular, so we need a singular verb, was. Cause was. You wouldn't say the cause were, the cause was. That's why it's so important to identify those prepositional phrases so that you can remember that your subject will never be within a prepositional phrase. Fires is the object of the preposition. It is not the subject. All right, let's look at number 3. She don't or doesn't arrive until tomorrow. Let's see. She don't or doesn't arrive until tomorrow. So we have until tomorrow as a prepositional phrase. And then we have she is the subject. She doesn't. Doesn't, remember, is a contraction for does not. So does is really the verb part. But contractions can be confused easily when it comes to subject-verb agreement. So that's why that's included there. She doesn't. Okay, let's look at number 4. Where are or is the maps you are using? Now, questions can be tricky. Questions can be tricky. You might want to switch it around to say the maps you are using is or are where. If it's confusing to you to not have the subject first. Where will never be the subject. There will never be the subject. Here will never be the subject. Those are adverbs. Just because it's at the beginning of the sentence does not mean it's the subject. If it's a question, think about turning it around. So the subject is maps. Maps. And then would we say maps are or maps is? Maps are. Where are the maps you are using? Let's look at number 5. Either Pete or his parents are or is going to pick us up. Either Pete or his parents. Okay. Subject, this is a compound subject. We have Pete, we have parents. Compound subjects joined by and take plural verbs, obviously, because it's more than one. Compound subjects joined by or, remember, the verb agrees with the closer subject. And what's the closer subject to the verb here? It's parents. So we say parents are or parents is. Parents are. So when it's a compound subject joined by or, the verb will agree with the closer subject. Just look at the closer subject when you're determining the verb. When it's joined by or, when it's a compound subject joined by or. Parents are. Either Pete or his parents are going to pick us up. Okay, number 6. Do or does your mother and father know the teacher? Okay, this is a question. You have to be careful with questions. Find your subject. Mother and father do know or does know? Well, we have a compound subject joined by and, so we're taking a plural verb. Mother and father do know. Do your mother and father know the teacher? All right, let's turn over your page to the last section, part 4, editing. Find the error in 8 of the sentences below. 2 of the sentences do not have errors. Correct each mistake and label with the following numbers. All right, let's look at number 1. After I stop at the gas station, I will get on the highway. After I stop at the gas station, I will get on the highway. Okay, so it's a good idea to sort of know what you're looking for. You're looking for sentence fragments, run-ons, commas, like commas needed after an introductory dependent clause, comma needed to join 2 independent clauses into a compound sentence. And then we're looking for verb errors, subject-verb agreement errors, principal part errors, specifically lie, lay, sit, set, rise, and raise. So let's see. Do we have a sentence fragment here? After I stop at the gas station, I will get on the highway? No. That's not a sentence fragment. Do we have a run-on sentence? Remember, a run-on sentence is when you have 2 independent clauses just strung together without a comma and a conjunction, making it a compound sentence. Just 2 independent clauses strung together. Well, let's see. After I stop at the gas station, is that an independent clause? No, that can't be a sentence by itself. So this is not a run-on. We don't have 2 independent clauses strung together. We have a dependent clause. After I stop at the gas station is the dependent clause. I will get on the highway is independent. If it helps you, you can underline the clauses like we did in the other part. So after I stop at the gas station, I will get on the highway. Aha, we have an introductory dependent clause. We need a comma after station, and that is a number 1. Or sorry, not a number 1. A number 2. Comma needed after an introductory dependent clause. After I stop at the gas station, comma, I will get on the highway. That's a dependent clause. An introductory dependent clause needs a comma after it. Number 2, I will go lay down now. Now, you know, on any of these editing exercises, if you see the verb lie, lay, sit, set, rise, raise, look carefully at it and see if it's an error. It won't always be. It won't always be. Might be a trick, but look at it and see if there's an error there. I will go lay down now. The verb lay has two uses. It's the past tense of to rest or recline, right? And the present tense of to put or place. Is anything being put down or placed here? Is the subject putting or placing? No. The subject is resting and reclining, but we only use lay in the past tense there. Right now, I lie down. Yesterday, I lay down. I have lain down. So it should say I will go lie down, and that is a number 6. Yes, it's a principal part error, but for lie, lay, sit, set, rise, raise, they're so commonly misused that I made them a separate error. So a number 6. If you put 5, I wouldn't count it wrong. It is a principal part error. But specifically, it's the incorrect use of lie, lay, sit, set, rise, raise. Okay, let's look at number 3. Each of the kids are bringing a snack. Each of the kids are bringing a snack. That's not a sentence fragment. It makes sense by itself. It's not a run-on. We don't have two independent clauses strung together. There's no dependent clause. It's not a compound sentence. Let's see if it's a verb error. Each are. Aha. Each are. So each is the subject here. If you look through all these other errors, guys, if you cannot figure out what it is, really look and see. Is our subject agreeing with our verb? Of the kids is a prepositional phrase. The subject is each. Each. Do we say each are? No. Each is singular. We need a singular verb, is. Each is. And that's a number 7. Subject-verb agreement error. Each of the kids is bringing a snack. The subject is not kids. Yes, we would say kids are, but kids is not the subject. The subject is each. Each is singular. Each kid. This kid, this kid, this kid separately. All right, number 4. If he runs quickly when he is trying to catch up with his friends after school. This one, your first thought might have been, well, it's long, it must be a run-on. But guys, that's not true. Don't let that trick you. Just because it's long doesn't mean it's a run-on. If he runs quickly when he's trying to catch up with his friends after school, what? That is a sentence fragment. That is a sentence fragment. If he runs quickly, yes, that is a dependent clause. If he runs quickly, it has a subject he, predicate runs, but it cannot stand alone. When he is trying to catch up with his friends after school is another dependent clause. We can't have a sentence without having an independent clause. Every sentence has to have an independent clause. If it doesn't have an independent clause, it cannot be a sentence. You can string 10 dependent clauses together and it still would not be a complete sentence. This is not a complete sentence. This is a sentence fragment. You have to add something to it. You might have added something to the beginning or the end. I'm going to say, if he runs quickly when he's trying to catch up with his friends after school, he might fall. Or you might have added something to the beginning, but whatever you add should be an independent clause. You might have said, he will need to be careful if he runs quickly when he's trying to catch up with his friends after school. So you need to add an independent clause to that. Two dependent clauses do not make a sentence. All right, my mom runs and swims every day. My mom runs and swims every day. Is that a sentence fragment? No, it makes sense by itself. It's not saying when my mom runs and swims every day or if or after. It doesn't have a subordinating conjunction, so it's a complete sentence. There's no introductory dependent clause. It's not a run-on. Comma needed before a coordinating conjunction that joins two independent clauses. You might have thought, oh, and is a coordinating conjunction, fanboys. The A is for and. But let's see, is this coordinating conjunction joining two independent clauses to make a compound sentence? My mom runs, yes, that could be a sentence by itself, but could swims every day be a sentence by itself? No. This and, don't be fooled, guys. Sometimes coordinating conjunctions are just joining subjects or predicates or objects of the preposition. Here we have a compound predicate. Mom runs and swims. It's not a compound sentence. So no comma is needed. No principal part error. Excuse me, no subject-verb agreement error. So number 5 is correct. No errors in number 5. So that's one of our 2 without any errors. Let's look at number 6. When I lay down last night, I fell asleep immediately. Oh, lay. Let's look at lay. Let's see if lay's used right. Lay can be the present tense of to rest or the past tense of to rest or recline, or the present tense of to put or place. When I lay down on last night, aha, that's happening in the past. So yes, we use lay. I lay down last night. It's the past tense of to rest or recline. Right now I lie. Yesterday or last night I lay. Past tense. So that's correct. When I lay down last night, I fell asleep immediately. When should be a clue that we might have a dependent clause. When I lay down last night. That is a dependent clause. When I lay down last night. Here we have another clause because we have another subject. I fell asleep immediately is an independent clause. So that is a comma needed after an introductory dependent clause. It's a number 2. Let's look at number 7. The teachers or the student have the book. The teachers or the student have the book. So we have a compound subject. The verb should agree with a closer subject. Student have? No, that should be student has. So that's a number 7. Student has. The teachers or the student has the book. The teachers have, but see that we're not going by teachers. We're going by the closer subject because it's joined by or. Student has. The teachers or the student has the book. Number 8. After we have lunch, we will lie down in the grass. We will rest there for an hour. After we have lunch, if it's long, you see a lot of clauses. Start looking at what type of clauses. After we have lunch, I'm going to go ahead and underline that twice because that's dependent. Has a comma after it, so that's good. Introductory dependent clause needs a comma. We will lie down in the grass is an independent clause. And then we will rest there for an hour is independent. And we have a semicolon. Can we join 2 independent clauses? We will lie down in the grass. We will rest there for an hour with a semicolon. Yes, we can. So number 8 is our other one that does not have any errors. It is correct. Let's look at number 9. When the curtain raised, I saw the actors. Let's look at raised. The curtain raised? Did the subject, for raised, the subject should be doing the raising. Is the curtain raising something? No. The person raises the curtain, but the curtain rose. So that's error number 6. The curtain rose. All right, and then last one, are one of the babies crying? This is a question. Let's see if there's correct subject-verb agreement. What's the subject here? Of the babies is a prepositional phrase. So can babies be the subject? Nope. That's why it's so important to identify prepositional phrases. So what's the subject? The subject is one. It's a question, so turn it into a statement if you need to. One of the babies are crying? No, because babies is not the subject. It should be is. Should be is. So that is a subject-verb agreement error. Number 7, is one of the babies crying? One of the babies is crying because one is the subject and one is singular. Babies is not the subject there. Okay, that's the last one. If there were any of those that you struggled with a lot, I would recommend going back and looking over your notes, looking over your grammar worksheets, especially with those subject-verb agreement ones. Each of those worksheets has a teaching section that tells, that gives you some information about those particular subject-verb agreement situations. You can always email me, text me, call me if you have any questions about any of these, and I will send your parents the test, and they can give it to you after you have finished this and after you have finished your subject-verb agreement worksheet, and then they can email it back to me and I will check it before Friday. Thank you.